Welcome to episode 8 of the Be Conscious podcast. Today we'll discuss this ever-intrusive mind of ours, how to perceive it, and most importantly, how to tame it.
Welcome to the Be Conscious podcast, the show that brings you enlightened perspectives on the frequency of money, life's many challenges, and those heavy feelings that may be holding you back from living your best life. And now your host, Dr. Susan Nicholas.
Have you guys heard of this new social media platform called Clubhouse? Well, I became a member of Clubhouse just a few weeks ago, and I've been joining different rooms surrounding consciousness and spirituality. And a lot of times I come across rooms that deal with mindset, and I've noticed a couple of things when I'm in those rooms. First, it's this idea that the mind is somehow evil or in the way or terrible or kind of the root of creating this unhappy life, this ongoing conversation with ourselves that creates thoughts and feelings that perhaps create a reality for us that we don't love or don't like. And I wanted to kind of look at that, like how we think about the mind, a lot of times in a negative way, in a way that it's not serving us, particularly if we are looking to raise our vibration spiritually, consciously. And I think by looking at the definition of the mind, it might help us to perceive it in a different way. So the mind is defined as the element of a person that enables them to be aware of the world and their experiences, to think and ultimately to feel. It's also defined as the faculty of our consciousness and thought. And many of us attribute the mind to our intellect. Now, sometimes this concept of mind and mindset is also interplayed or entangled with this definition of the ego. I've even called it the egoic mind, kind of the mind that's aware of itself and has all sorts of judgments about itself. But let's define ego too, and maybe broaden this conversation. So the definition of ego is the person's sense of self-esteem or self-importance. In psychoanalysis, this definition is broadened to refer to the part of the mind that mediates between the conscious and unconscious, and is responsible for reality testing and a sense of personal identity. Now, in neither of these definitions of the mind or the ego is the mind described as good or bad, or the root of evil, or chatter, or the root of ill feelings. But somehow we come to associate the mind with such things. And we forget, I believe, what the role of the mind is and how to perceive it in a way that's healthy for us, particularly as we are experiencing a more awakened state of beingness on the planet. Now, I'll contend that the mind and the ego, they're not good or bad, but they are both in service to the body. I believe that we are the incarnate of the universe, that we are energy, souls that are embodied in a human form to have experiences on earth. And those experiences are to mature our souls. So the mind is associated with the brain and the body, and it helps us to identify with ourselves and the world around us. But what happens is, in our minds, we start having thoughts about the things that we want, things that we like and dislike. We can experience things that we want that we wish we didn't want, or we feel ashamed or embarrassed of wanting. Like we may want for more money or sexual activity of sorts. Maybe we want other people's things, or we want to covet things. And then we realize that in that wanting or that thinking of the mind, there's a feeling associated with it. And those feelings we don't necessarily really feel good about. We might feel jealous. We might feel like harming ourselves, or we might feel like harming others. And so then we begin associating our thoughts, and then the mind of us that creates the thoughts, with bad or heavy feelings, particularly when we're thinking about harming ourselves or others. And so I wanted to make a distinction between the mind, the one that thinks, the one that perceives, the mind that creates an association between the world and the experiences of the body, and between the feelings emanating from the body. Because I think we are very quick to associate our thoughts with our feelings. So there's an existentialist thought, and I think some religious roots of existentialism, like Christian existentialism, for example, that tell us that our thoughts create our reality. But I want to go a little bit deeper and incorporate the feelings behind our thoughts, and perhaps that they are responsible for what creates our reality. You see, I believe our feelings, at the root of them, they are energy. You may have heard of me refer to the energy of us as the soul of us, and that this energy is the root of our feelings, and that there's also an energetic component of our thoughts and our ideas, our beliefs, and that these things at the root of them are also energy, and that the energy of us follows the very same law of thermodynamics that other forms of energy on the planet follow, like the energy that is electricity or hydropower or solar power. But this energy is conserved. It is not created nor destroyed, but it is conserved. And that in order to change it, we must transform it. So if you think about the energy that is behind your thoughts and your feelings, to change those things, that energetic component of it must be transformed. So let me go back a little bit to the mind when I said it's not good or bad, but it's in service to the body. And that, yes, it does have thoughts. It does have awareness of the world and the experiences that we are having in the world. But being in service to the body, the mind has a role. And that is to keep us safe. And it also holds memories of things that have happened in the past, so perhaps we don't repeat it in the future if it was harmful to us. And then similarly, if there was something in the past that occurred that was very joyful or fulfilling to us, it wants us to have that experience again, to seek that out again. And again, it's not good or bad. I just think that it's what the mind does. That's its role. And I wonder if we could accept that that's the role of the mind and separate it from the feelings that are emanating from us, that we won't try to get rid of this mind of ours or hate the mind of ours or, cut out the mind of ours. But really, could we honor the mind of ours for what its role and purpose truly is and how it does serve us? The mind often gets a bad rap because it's constantly running a racket in our mind. It's rehashing these grievances that we have, these thoughts of things that were said or unsaid, things that we did or didn't do, things that we wish we have, or focusing on the things that we don't have. And integrated or integral to those thoughts are feelings associated with those thoughts. So I want to offer an exercise to tame the mind or quiet the mind, and then to deal with these emotions that are associated with them. So I think what makes the thoughts of the mind, particularly the ones that are running over and over again like a broken record, so harmful to us, is that it elicits an emotion from us as well. And a lot of time that feeling, we don't like it. It's very painful to us, or it hurts us in some way. Or sometimes it's associated with the memory that we dare not face again. But if you realize that we can tame the mind and transform the feeling at the same time, then the mind actually becomes our friend, that we become grateful for it, for what it does do. But we don't want to be overrun by it. We don't want it to rule us or be the driver of the bus. We want our soul, our intuition, our true self to be in the driver's seat. So how do we do that? There's an exercise that I'd like to share that you can do at any time, any moment, whether you're washing the dishes, doing the laundry, taking care of the kids, driving down the freeway. It's an exercise of quieting the mind and transforming the feelings that are often associated with those thoughts that sometimes we believe hold us back in life. Let's take a quick break and we'll come back and talk about that.
Like what you're hearing so far, make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button now. How would you describe your relationship with money? Did you ever imagine that your deepest feelings and beliefs about money could be preventing you from acquiring all the wealth that you desire? Click the link below in the show notes to learn more about Dr. Nicholas's highly sought-after Frequency of Money program to positively transform your relationship with money. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. Now, back to the show.
This exercise about taming the mind is not something that we can do once and then we're through, because we'll realize as we begin to work through the issues that keep recurring for us and the feelings that are associated with them, that we'll clear one batch of things and then something else or something deeper will come up. Or, that we just don't stop living life, that life keeps happening. And so we'll have to continually process these thoughts and feelings. But what this exercise will do is give you the tools to work through those recurring thoughts, the ones that are not serving you, the tools to quiet the mind and to transform heavy emotions and feelings that you may feel are holding you back from living your best life or creating your best life. So I like to think about the recurring thoughts in your mind like an old record player, like those old gramophones with a vinyl record that has a skip in it, and it just keeps repeating and repeating and repeating. And this is really, if you can think about it, like lifting the needle off of that record so it stops the skipping, stops the racket, that recurring thought that you feel like you're in a cycle of and you cannot break it. When you have a thought or a grievance that's recurring in your mind, or a worry, for instance, and worries typically come from fears. There's something that we're afraid of, often in the future. And so if you have a recurring thought or recurring fear, and there's this feeling associated with it, like a sickness in your stomach, or you lose your appetite, or a pain somewhere in your body, the idea is when you begin to hear that thought, to immediately acknowledge it. So let's say I'm having some money issues and I'm not sure how I'm going to pay the rent. And here it is again, another money shortfall. And in that process, I remember past monetary shortfalls and the consequences of that and how awful it felt. And then I've told myself certain stories about myself, like maybe I'm irresponsible, or this is too hard, or I can't afford something, or perhaps I feel undeserving or unworthy in some way, or ashamed in some way, maybe embarrassed. That feeling comes back with that thought of, oh no, here comes, the rent is coming due and I'm not sure if I will have the money to make it. And so your mind will start running a racket. And sometimes this is so painful or so deep that we won't feel like waking up in the morning or even going on living. I mean, this can be very, very damaging to the soul, to the body, to have these recurring thoughts about lack of resources or deprivation. And so I say this exercise is really life-saving, because when we can stop that thought right where it is as it comes to the mind, and we can address it right then and there with another thought that says, I hear you, or what is this about? And when you break the cycle like that, it's like lifting the needle off of that old record and stopping the skipping, stopping the repeated thought. It's something that in the past, maybe we didn't think that we could control. But when you have awareness about the thought, you can then realize that you have control on the thoughts that are replaying over and over in your head. And so when I stop that, I ask my question, even if I don't have a question, but I acknowledge it, it stops it. And sometimes what happens is we'll have another conversation in our mind about our grievances or surrounding that, like what we could have said or should have said or could have done or would have done, or if this could have happened or that. We kind of go back and forth with ourselves in our mind. But what if the awareness of you, the higher self of you that has awareness of this thought, just stops it with an acknowledgement that I hear you. And then in that place, notice where in your body you have a feeling about it. Just notice it. Where is it? And then the next step is to focus on your breath at that moment, just the breathing in and out. And in those moments when you're focusing on your breath, I think it's very helpful to narrow your thoughts to just 2 words, like pick the 2 words. 1, 2, in, out, I am. Whatever your 2 words, just pick those 2 words and coordinate that with your in-breath and your out-breath. And then keep doing the breathing, the focus on the breathing, until that feeling in the body begins to dissipate, meaning that it doesn't feel so heavy. And in that space where you are focused on your breath and you've narrowed your thoughts to just 2 words, begin telling yourself a different story. And when it comes to money, it could be something like, yes, I recognize that happened in the past, but there are different possibilities for me now and in the future. Maybe I am wiser now, or I'm smarter now, or I'm older now. Perhaps you're in a place where you realize that money is limitless and infinite, that there are trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars and monies floating around the world, circulating, and that you deserve your rightful share of it. Perhaps you tell yourself that you are deserving of a positive outcome, that you are worthy. If you cannot come to those beliefs or feelings about money, about its infiniteness, its limitedness, about your deservedness of it, I say have 3 things that you implicitly know about yourself in your back pocket. Like, what do you know to be true about yourself? It could be that you're a good person, a good friend, a mother, father, that you're intelligent, that you're creative, that you're conscientious, that you're a great athlete, that you're a great cook, that you're a good mother or father, brother, sister, friend, whatever it is, that you're beautiful. Pick at least 3 of those things that you implicitly know about yourself. And if you're in a place where you cannot think of something, just remember that I am, I exist. Maybe that's enough for now. And in that place of the breathing in and out, focusing on your breath, narrowing your thoughts to 2 words, you might tell yourself something that you implicitly know to be true about yourself, that is positive and that is redeeming. And I say that old emotion, you can tell yourself, I'm going to suspend it. My usual breakdown, my usual sadness, my usual behavior. I'm going to defer that feeling, those actions for 48 hours while I am remembering who I am and focusing on my breath when I feel that feeling again. Because often that feeling is fear. It comes from a place of fear, of insecurity, from lack, of scarcity, of some situation where there was not enough in the past, or you felt like you were not enough in the past. And the reason that you're feeling it over and over again is because that feeling has yet to be transformed. Whatever the situation was, whatever was going on, sometimes we coped with it in the best way that we could at the time, but we never transformed that energy. And so it is still within us. It is still within the energetic matrix of our soul. It's a part of us. Because again, we are energy at our core. And our thoughts, our feelings, our beliefs, those are also energetic aspects of our beingness. And that in order to overcome anything that has hurt us in the past, we must learn to transform the energy. Before I end this episode, I want to remind you something about our feelings, something that we have never been told. And that is that our feelings are meant to be felt. So anytime that a feeling keeps recurring, that's because I need to feel it. I need to feel through it to finally transform it. That our feelings are intentional, that they are indeed meant to be felt. And ultimately, our feelings, that frequency of our feelings, the vibration of that energy, is what is resonated out to the universe and what is returned to us in kind. So yes, our feelings are what create our physical reality. Our thoughts have a role, our ideas, our beliefs, but ultimately it's the feelings behind those thoughts that create our reality. So in taming the mind, learning to tame and quiet the mind, we also learn to transform our deepest, heaviest feelings that have held us back from living our best life. You have been listening to the Be Conscious podcast. Stay tuned for the next episode.
Thanks for listening to the Be Conscious podcast with author, TEDx international speaker, and conscious coach, Dr. Susan Nicholas. Be sure to connect with her to stay up to date with her latest news and works. Learn more about her conscious speaking platform at susannicholas.org/speaking. Stay tuned for the next thought-provoking episode. And whether you are coming or going, looking inside or out, remember to be conscious.